In today's video, we're going to cover the new integration we have here at Castos with Paid Memberships Pro. If you've not seen Paid Memberships Pro before, it's one of the leading membership plugins for WordPress. And of course, it's free in the WordPress repo. Everything we're going to do here today is simply using the free version of Paid Memberships Pro. They have some fantastic add-ons for running a membership site. I encourage you to check out the rest of their add-ons. But we'll just cover what we need to get started today. Of course, it's the free version of Paid Memberships Pro, the free Seriously Simple podcasting plugin that we create here at Castos to run your podcast and manage your podcast through WordPress. But the only thing you will need to pay for, because remember, we're here to sell private podcasting for your membership listeners, audience, courses, whatever it is. We'll talk about some of the value in a second. You will need at least the starter plan from us at Castos that starts at $19 a month. You can have 100 private subscribers. You can run a public podcast. You can have a private podcast. You can have as many private or public podcasts as you want out of this $19 a month starter plan. We only track the 100 private subscribers and up to the 20,000 downloads per month in that account. Let's just briefly talk about why you might want to have a private podcast for your membership powered by Paid Memberships Pro. Well, first and foremost, there's a lot of us out there who are course creators, private community builders, and we use a public podcast as a way to attract that audience. The large amount of public podcasts might have advertisements, they might have bonus content, and you can provide that valuable ad-free podcast or the inside look or the director's cut using a private podcast. This is something that somebody would need to have either at least signed up on an email list for or paid you whatever sum you want, a monthly recurring fee, an annual fee, whatever it is that you want to structure with Paid Memberships Pro, you can tie that in to your private Castos podcast account. Fantastic for, again, providing that extra content. Fantastic for onboarding if you have a pretty complex membership system. Maybe you have different courses, modules, silos, all of this stuff. We found that private podcasting is a great way to build up and ramp up a little onboarding audio sequence. And one of the best things I think that we have here at Castos is, sure, you can take these private podcasts and deliver them to any podcast player that somebody uses on their phone or mobile device, but we also have a free podcast listening app that you can find in the iOS store or the Android store. So if you want sort of a distraction-free, your customers are focused just on your content, then this is a perfect solution for that use case. Okay, now that we've got that value out of the way, let's dive in to setting all this stuff up. So the first thing we'll do is we'll set up a membership level inside of Paid Memberships Pro. So we'll go to Memberships, Settings, and create a membership level. And you might already have membership levels. I'm just doing this for example. So we'll say private podcast. This is for a private podcast. Thanks for signing up. And totally up to you on what that initial payment is. But there are, again, tons of examples of very popular podcasts that are out there on Apple and Spotify, and they have member-only content. And with Paid Memberships Pro, they make it easy for you to have that sort of paywall or connect into Stripe or PayPal or whatever merchants they connect up with. And you can set the paid amount here. And as soon as somebody pays, signs up for this particular membership plan, they'll also get the private podcast. We'll show how that works. But for right now, I'm going to just leave it at 0 because oftentimes having a private podcast and capturing somebody's email address is valuable enough for you as the course creator. Or maybe you want to create a free course that's an audio course and you're delivering it with the Castos private podcast. We'll leave it at 0 for right now and we'll hit save. This is the most basic, setup of a membership level. You can get, however complex as you want with Paid Memberships Pro, but we have the private podcast here. I'm going to take a look at the Castos dashboard right now. There's these 3 podcasts right here. These are all just sample podcasts, of course, and we're going to create a series inside of the Seriously Simple podcasting plugin, and you'll see that actually create in our Castos dashboard. The one thing I'm not covering here is connecting the API up from Seriously Simple Podcasting to the Castos account. We have other videos and documents on that. So you will have to have your accounts connected first. So let's go ahead and create a new series. We'll say Paid Memberships Pro Podcast. And I'm just going to copy and paste this as the description. And we're going to do it just at the most basic levels right now. We'll create that series, which in our plugins terms is a whole new podcast. It creates a whole new feed. It's getting connected to Castos right now. So we call it Paid Memberships Pro Podcast. We'll go back to our Castos account. We'll refresh that. It's on page 2 now. And there it is, Paid Memberships Pro Podcast. And of course, there are no episodes in it yet. We haven't uploaded anything. But if we go to the podcast settings, this is what the most critical thing we have to do next is go to the distribution section and turn this to a private podcast. And I'll show that as an example, because when we go to our settings, integrations, this is where we'll find the connection that we make to Paid Memberships Pro and the Castos private podcast hosting. So you'll see right here says Paid Memberships Pro Podcast. That's the one that we just created. And you'll notice if it hasn't been set to a private podcast yet, it says, please first make this podcast private in your Castos dashboard. So we'll do that right now because by default, it is set as a public podcast. So we'll click on podcast as private. You get the confirmation. Yes, it's going to set as private. And then we'll hit save podcast details there. Head back to our WordPress site, refresh. And now you'll see right here, there's a little check mark that we have. And this says require private podcast to access. Private podcast is the name of our membership level that we just set up. So we're going to hit save settings. And now the integration is ready. We've now told WordPress, hey, when someone signs up for the Paid Memberships Pro private podcast level, we'll connect the Paid Memberships Pro podcast to that, and we'll tell Castos, hey, we've got a new customer here. We've got somebody signing up on our WordPress website. Okay, let's backtrack that and rewind that super fast. We go to memberships, settings, we create our level. This is called a private podcast. Again, it's free here. It could be $100 a year, $100 a month, totally up to you on what you want to do in terms of billing. We'll go to podcast, settings, integrations, and under the Paid Memberships Pro integration, we want to make sure that we check off and say this private podcast needs this level, and we'll be off to the races. What happens next is when we start to see subscribers come through our Paid Memberships Pro website, they'll show up on the Castos private podcast dashboard. And this is where we make all the changes to our private podcast to our subscribers. We can see our account growing. We can manage a private subscriber if we want to, remove somebody manually or reactivate them manually. All of that can be done right through the Castos dashboard. Let's look at an example of signing up somebody and what that might look like for you. If we go to add new page, we'll call this free private, if I can type, podcast. And one of the great things about Paid Memberships Pro is they have a bunch of Gutenberg blocks if you're using Gutenberg blocks. And they have a block called Membership Checkout Button, which makes your life super easy because this will build an actual button for you to have your users check off and sign up, either buy or join for free. So we'll just say, get access to a private podcast. I always have a tough time spelling podcast. And then we'll pick which membership level. I only have this one membership level right now. It's called private podcast. We'll leave that there as default, and we're just going to hit publish. And then we'll view the page. And you can see right here on view the page on the front end of this WordPress site, that's the button. It says get access to the private podcast. If I wanted to add this to a landing page of sorts, I could do that. But what I'm going to do is open up a private window here and then sign up for this so you can see it in action. So when somebody clicks on this, I can create my account. You can see right here, it says membership level. I'm signing up for the private podcast. The price is $0. It's for free. And we'll set a username. So we'll say Castos Matt. And then we'll do Matt +2 @ castos.com. Matt plus 2 at castos.com. We'll submit and confirm. Oh, I already have a user. We'll call that Castos Matt 2. Submit and confirm. And there it is. It says I've signed up. Thanks for signing up. This is all Paid Memberships Pro stuff. You can configure, this whole workflow to happen afterwards if you want. Redirect to another page, show them a video, whatever it is. But anything valuable that you want to present here is certainly up to you. And now we'll check our Castos dashboard for that new user. Hit refresh. And there it is. There's Castos Matt 2. I've been assigned the Paid Memberships Pro podcast. Now I have access to administer this user. If I want to, delete the user, revoke the user, cancel the user. The great thing about private podcasting is it's a unique RSS feed. Well, it's actually two things here at Castos. It's either a unique RSS feed that you send somebody, and they get a unique RSS feed that they can put into their mobile players and listen to it at will. And the thing is if they ever leave or level up out of your course or they cancel or something like that, we can shut off just that unique RSS feed, which means they'll never get another episode again. So if they move on from you, they'll never get another episode. It's not like they have just one feed that you're sharing with all of your members and people can share it around the internet, or they can always kind of like sneak in and get access again. You can shut that one unique RSS feed off per your customer. Or you can say, you know what, I want to do away with RSS feeds altogether. If you deliver your user just access to the private app player that we have, if you just search Castos in the iOS store, the Google Play Store, that app, there are no RSS feeds. They just log in with their email address and they see all of the content that you've created for them in our Castos podcast player, and they only listen to it there. So the advantages are you're not messing around with any RSS feeds. We send them an email that says, here's your RSS feeds, here's the access to the app, but you can shut that off. We have other videos about that. And the great thing about the app is it's distraction free. So on one hand, yes, it's nice. You can give them an RSS feed. They can listen to it in any app that they already use. The bad thing is there's all these other podcasts that are there. So if you want to know that people are just listening to your content, give them a distraction-free environment with our Castos player, and they'll have to listen to it there. And that means that they'll listen to the content fully because they're not going to click on their favorite other podcast halfway through your training course or something like that. That's the power of private podcasting. That's the value of hosting it here at Castos and connecting it up with the Paid Memberships Pro plugin. I won't go through adding podcasts and all that stuff, but now you'll be able to come in here, add a new episode, and then if you click on the series, you'd upload, you'd check off Paid Memberships Pro podcast. There we got a bunch of other videos and documents on that. You can upload your private podcast right here and manage that private podcast feed. You don't have to log back into Castos once you make this connection. You can manage it all right here, which is fantastic, and start selling private podcasting or adding a private podcast to your valuable Paid Memberships Pro members that you already have. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thumbs up if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want more. If you have any other integrations or ideas that you might want to hear about, we have another one that we just launched recently with ConvertKit. So if you have Paid Memberships Pro, ConvertKit, private podcast, you can really build a lot of amazing stuff and deliver some amazing audio content to your members. Okay, thumbs up if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want more. We'll see you in the next video.